I'm in Old Saybrook, Connecticut, visiting some relatives. And the last time I was up here a few years ago, I learned that a custom frame builder that I've always wanted to visit was right up the road, and I blew it, and I never made the effort to get here. So this time I didn't make that mistake. So I'm here at the Alex Meade Bike Works with Alex Meade. And he's taken a little bit of time to talk to me, and he's going to help me out with a little project. We're going to learn a little bit about what he has done to help all the people that want a little bit better bicycle than what they can find at your local bike shop. So welcome, Alex. Thank you for meeting with me. I sure appreciate it. So can you tell us a little bit about your education and background?
Sure, thanks. Keith, it's really nice to meet you after years of only talking to you on the phone, so thanks for coming up. Yeah, I've been doing this as a business for about 25 years now. I'd started it when I was working full-time, and it segued into a full-time business at this point. My background is as a mechanical engineer. I spent a career's worth of time in industry as a mechanical engineer. But of course, I've always been an avid cyclist, so the combination of mechanical engineering and interest in cycling drew me to be curious about building bicycle frames and what goes into designing and constructing them.
So you're not only just an engineer that's well trained from the Stanford University, so you definitely have the pedigree of being able to do what you do, but you're also a very accomplished cyclist. So can you talk a little bit about your cycling history and what that has brought to your business?
Sure. Yeah, you know, I think I was lucky in that I grew up in an area where the only way to get around in summer was on a bicycle. So I learned at an early age to use a bicycle as my main means of transportation. That pretty much has held through for most of my life. When I worked daily at an industrial job, I commuted by bicycle. I've done a lot of bicycle touring. I've done some racing. I was never a particularly good racer, but I enjoyed it. But in later years, I started doing what's called randonneuring, which is this sort of ultra-distance stuff that Keith is well familiar with. And it's there where I really got into sort of the love of long-distance cycling, and in particular these events that go hundreds of miles without stopping, or at least with not many stops, up to 1,200 kilometer events, which is 750 miles. So probably my most well-known achievement in the cycling world was completing the event called Paris-Brest-Paris in 2007, I believe, which is a 750-mile event in a time of under 56 hours, which is notable in that not a whole lot of people have done that, but it was also raining the entire time.
Let me jump in here real quick and briefly talk about something that Alex Meade mentioned that a lot of cyclists are not aware of. There is a type of cycling called randonneuring, and it's a little different than what most people do. Randonneuring means to just ride around. There's an organization called, in the United States, it's called RUSA, or Randonneurs of the USA. And these are events that are put on by what they call directors or RBAs in each state. Basically, you ride by yourself or with a group, but you have to be self-sufficient. So many cyclists who may be watching this are probably ride with clubs, or they go out by themselves and they do anywhere from 20 to 40, 50, 60 miles at a time and think that's a long distance. But in randonneuring, the distances typically start at 200K, which is 125 miles. So if you were to participate in a randonneuring event, when you do 200K, you have approximately 13 hours to finish that. Now, if you do the quick division, you think, oh, well, that's only 8.27 miles an hour average for that distance, but it doesn't work like that. The clock never stops, so you have to take into account the amount of time that you're off the bike, getting food or resting for that particular distance. So roughly, as a general rule, you need to be able to average 13 to 14 miles an hour. So doing a 200K is, not any really big deal. It's only 125 miles. It's not very far. I know some randonneurs, and their philosophy is when it gets to 100 miles, the event is over for them because 100 miles is nothing to them. Alex Meade mentioned he did something called PBP in under 56 hours. Now, what is PBP? PBP stands for Paris-Brest-Paris. Now, if you're familiar with France, those are towns in Paris. So in randonneuring, you basically have to qualify in order to do longer distances. So it starts out at 200 kilometers, then goes to 300 kilometers, 400 kilometers, 600 kilometers, and then sometimes people will do 1,000 kilometers, but the next big jump is typically to 1,200 kilometers. Now, 1,200 kilometers, for those not familiar, is approximately 745 miles. Now, for each one of these distances, the time goes up. So, for instance, at 200 kilometers, you have, I believe, 13 hours. For 300 kilometers or 100 miles, you have 20 and a half hours. So it keeps increasing each time, but for 1,200 kilometers, you have 90 hours. Now, that means you need to average 13 to 14 miles an hour in order just to complete the 745 miles. Now, let's think about this distance. 745 miles is the distance between Nashville, Tennessee, and Columbus, Ohio. So it's basically 372 miles each way. So wherever you are, think about a town that's 372 miles away. Now you have to ride there and back in 90 hours. Now in that time, you have to eat. You have to, of course, ride. And you'll have to sleep some also, because sleep deprivations are a real issue in PBP. So when you do these type of rides, one of the most important things is to manage your time off the bike, but we're not going to get into all the details about that. So I've done, hundreds and hundreds of centuries, throughout my 40 years, and centuries is really not that far to do. You can do it if you can train for it, if you've not already done them. Now, I know some of you watching this thinking, oh, a century, that's nothing. Well, that's great. But for some of you, you're probably thinking, oh my God, 100 miles, I'll never be able to do that. If you try, you can do it. So my longest ride I've ever done is 140 miles. But this year I'm actually in pretty good shape for being an old man. And I've already done a 200K, so very soon I'm going to try my first 300K. But let's talk about why Alex mentioned this. When you're a randonneur, your body changes. You are able to do long rides and it doesn't faze you. But in order to do these long rides, you need a bike that fits you perfectly and that is designed specifically for that. And you will notice any type of imperfection or fit or if something doesn't work right. So that's why it's so important for these people to seek out builders like Alex Meade that can design bikes specifically made for this, because you're just not on your bike for 3-4 short hours. You're on your bike maybe 18 to 20 hours in a 24-hour day. So that's a long time. And with that type of experience comes a knowledge in how to build bikes for those type of people that work really well for them. When Alex Meade says he did PBP in under 56 hours to join what's called the Charlie Miller Society for the PBP riders, is a huge accomplishment and shouldn't just be glossed over as, oh, he did something called PBP. It's pretty phenomenal. If you're interested in randonneuring, I suggest you look it up. It's a lot of fun, really neat people. You get to spend lots of time with them on their bikes, and you'll get to see a lot more countryside than you do just on short club rides or just doing centuries around a particular area. It's a lot of fun. All right, so back to the video. So Alex, tell us what got you into wanting to build your own bicycle. Most people would dream about that, but most people would never even try it. So what got you down that path?
That's a really good question. I'm not sure I have a clean answer for that, but I think it was a combination of being the kind of person that liked to build things and being a cyclist. And it just sort of seemed like an obvious fit to try to build my own bicycle. I don't think I ever thought that it would be something that was wonderful or a great bike in any in any particular way, but it was just an interesting project to try to complete. So that's how I started.
So were you self-taught, or were there other builders that influenced you throughout your business?
Good question. I am largely self-taught, although I do have a certification from United Bicycle Institute in brazed construction frame building. So, but you know, the difference between getting a certification and making beautiful bikes is practice. So, again, the large part of it is self-taught. But you know, I had good mentors in United Bicycle Institute, and also a textbook that I started with. It's called the Pateric Manual, which I think may be out of print today, but is a really good, sort of a Bible of bicycle building. And I started by reading that manual cover to cover twice before I picked up a file or held a tube.
Okay, so what do you like to make your bicycles from, and why? What materials do you prefer?
My material of preference is steel. That extends to stainless steel, though. So any type of steel. And my reasons for that are, first of all, it is a very forgiving material for the cyclist in that it is well known for being shock absorbing. So for those of us that ride long distances and require a bicycle that is going to be comfortable for hundreds of miles at a time, steel is the obvious choice. In addition, the variety of steel tubing available today makes it particularly preferable for designing custom bikes. Simply put, there are a large number of steel, high-quality bicycle tubes available today from which I can choose to design a custom bike.
Do you prefer to use any one particular brand of tubing?
Yes, but for an odd reason. I typically use Columbus tubing simply because it is, of all the high-quality tubing, the most available. There are other manufacturers of high-quality tubing which I will happily use, but they're not nearly as available in this country as Columbus tubing.
So do you have anyone helping you in the shop at all, Alex?
No. Interesting question. I get quite a few emails from folks who would like to work for me, but I've never had anybody working with me in the shop other than students who are here for a very short period of time. I do all the work myself.
Now, why is it that you want to work that way?
I think it's just what I'm used to, honestly. You know, and maybe if I was doing high volume production and I needed the help of an assistant or an apprentice, then that would make sense. But for, you know, custom bikes that are built one at a time, there's really no need or reason to have an assistant.
Mm-hmm. Is there any one type of customer that seeks you out, or can you build just about anything?
Well, the answer to the second question is yes, I can build just about anything. And there are really, I'll put the categories of people that like to come to me as two categories. One is simply people who have been to bicycle shops and cannot find in a bike shop what they're looking for, and so they'll come to me. The second category is those that do the same kind of riding that I do, this randonneuring or ultra-distance riding. I'm pretty well known in the randonneuring world for building randonneuring bikes, and so that is probably, it's hard to put a percentage on it, but I'd say 40% of my business is randonneuring bikes for those that are actually doing ultra-distance cycling.
So if someone wants to seek you out, Alex, to have you build them a bike, what would the process be?
Okay, most people contact me through my website, alexmeade.com, but they also contact me through various social media platforms, including Instagram. But typically people will come to me and say, hey, I'm interested in a bike. How do we do this? The first step is to do a fitting. And that can either be done by somebody who knows how to do a fitting that's close to the client, or the client can come to me and I'll do the fitting here in my shop. It's actually included in the cost of the frame. From there, we talk about component choices, wheel size, brake types, all of the various aspects of the bicycle design that affect the frame. And then I go off and take all of that information and incorporate that into a design for the client's approval. And once the design is approved and everybody's happy with it, then we proceed to actually make a bike.
So not only does Alex Meade build bicycles, but something unique that he does that I've not seen anyone else do in the bike business is that he actually makes the tools for other builders, which I think is an important distinction with him. Because if he makes the tools for other builders, you can imagine the level of detail and accuracy he has. So Alex, can you talk a little bit about what got you into making tools for others and why do you do this?
Sure, that's
not just to make money, but
no. I mean, fundamentally, remember, I'm trained and experienced as a mechanical engineer, and one of the things that mechanical engineers do is design machinery. So all of the tools that I sell to other bicycle builders are tools that I needed for my own work, and so these tools were designed and built to satisfy a need I had in my own shop. And if I thought those tools were worthy of other bicycle builders using them, then I would offer them for sale. There are tools that I've made that I've decided, well, this is either something that only me is interested in, or it's something that I don't feel comfortable putting my name on and offering for sale to other builders. But the tools that do meet those criteria, I offer for sale, and I actually, run a separate website for my tools called alexmeadetools.com. where you can see the various tools that I make. And it's everything from the simplest
show
tools.
Show us some examples of what you got
probably
here.
The simplest tool a bicycle builder needs is what's called a tubing block, which is something to grab hold of a piece of tubing so that it can be held in a vise without damaging that thin tubing. So that's a very basic tool. I offer a stem fixture that allows a builder to make handlebar stems of any description. So this holds everything in position while it's being brazed or welded.
Now you were showing me earlier that this is customizable to any different sizes of stem diameters.
Size, angle, different. There are adapter rings that you can see here sliding up and down that adapt the fixture to any of the common sizes of handlebar stems that are used today, both the steerer clamp diameter and the bar clamp diameter. So this is a pretty popular tool. Another one that I sell quite a few of is my fork fixture, which allows a builder to fixture a fork, all the pieces of a fork in position so it can be welded or brazed together, and it works with any kind of fork, whether it's lugged or fillet brazed or segmented crown type forks. It's a pretty basic tool. I designed and built my own after years of working with fork fixture that wasn't precise enough for my needs. So this is I call it a precision fork fixture, and the precision is not just a word that I've added, it really is precise.
Now you were showing me one part of this earlier which I questioned, well, why did you center the
dummy
fork
axle
dropout by just using a little circlip? And I thought this was really interesting.
Yeah.
Why do you find that this is better than what you've seen out there?
There are other methods for doing this, but again, the design of this comes from a mechanical engineering background and an intent to preserve the precision as much as possible. And this is the absolute simplest way that I could come up with of locating a dummy axle in a fixture while still preserving all of the accuracy that's required. Remember, this dummy axle has to be absolutely square to the fork in both dimensions and in this plane as well. And this allows one to do that with only one positioning feature, which is this clip ring that butts against a precision surface on the edge of this block. So it's you'll see others that are similar to this, and you'll see others that are not similar. And I really think the one-sided location feature, where the location is also on the working outer diameter of the dummy axle, is far more precise than any other option.
And I will attest, I was playing with this a little bit earlier, and there is zero slop here. It's really incredible.
Yeah, every one of these fixtures, after it's machined, is assembled on a surface plate and dialed in perfectly. So for example, these rails, these two stainless steel rails, are screwed to the block only after they're in position, and then they're drilled and pinned in position so they cannot move. And that's true of every stationary part of this fixture. Everything's drilled and pinned. You know, when I ship them, they're shipped completely assembled. There's no guesswork. They are truly a precise piece of machinery.
Well, that's impressive tools, Alex.
Thank you.
Okay. So when you say he develops tools, he develops lots of jigs.
This is the fixture that a frame builder will use to hold all the tubes in position while the frame is brazed or welded together. So, for example, the seat tube is held here. The seat tube angle can be adjusted. This fixture allows for offset seat tubes or curved seat tubes. These can rotate, but they're currently set to be vertical. Similarly, for the head tube, the angle can be set. The distance between the axle and the bottom bracket is set. The height is set here. You got supports for the top tube, supports for the seat stays. And one of the unique features about this particular fixture is that the bottom bracket floats on this tube so that it's not forced into position by the length of the bottom bracket. Bottom brackets, as we know, are typically 68 millimeters or 73 millimeters in length, but that's not exact. And so to the extent that they are not precisely the correct length, that length discrepancy will offset the bottom bracket on a fixture that does not allow the bottom bracket to float. So I haven't seen this on any fixture, and it's just something that as I used other fixtures I realized was lacking. And so it was one of the key features of this design to ensure that the frame remained all in one plane. Another way of looking at this is that the only two constraints on the planarity of the frame are the position of the seat tube and the position of the head tube, and they are held absolutely parallel in the fixture. So I think it's an improvement. I find that I can make very straight frames with this fixture, so I think I've got something that works pretty well. You know, there are a lot of choices in fixtures out there, but I prefer this one.
Let's take a look here at Alex Meade's personal bike. This one is a stainless steel frame made of KVA tubing. A couple things that caught my eye immediately on this bike was the stem. If you look at this stem, you'll even see that the stem is lugged. You don't find that much anymore in the industry at all. Everyone's just gone to TIG welding a couple pieces of metal together without any real effort to it. Just beautiful lug work on this stem. I think his logo is pretty cool also. Here is the fork, just a beautiful minimalist crown on his fork. Nice lugs. He's got some beautiful dropouts here. This is a beautiful Henry James dropout. Not made anymore, but they are absolutely gorgeous. And the rear dropouts, he said, were Llewellyn, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
Just beautiful. Minimalist. Nice lug. Even his brake bridge is just gorgeous. So, beautiful bike. Really is, just exquisite work. He's printing his prototypes before he makes them for real. Just beautiful. Just zero difference between these. Thank you very much for spending so much time with me this morning. I sure appreciate it. It's been a lot of fun.
Absolutely been my pleasure. You're welcome here anytime.